On March 31st Street, a morning fog lay low over Main Street in Hyannis. Emerging from the mist were 6 Border Collies, moving with a fluid, almost unnerving precision. Their lithe, athletic bodies shifted in perfect concert, a ripple of black and white muscle under sleek coats. Their dark, intelligent eyes were fixed forward, sharp with focus, with no collars or harnesses. They were a portrait of pure, focused energy. The crowd held its breath, straining to see who could possibly be commanding these magnificent animals. Then, a wave of astonishment passed through the onlookers. It was not a professional trainer or a police officer, but a small girl, no older than 6. Her delicate frame seemed dwarfed by the powerful dogs flanking her, yet they responded instantly to her nearly invisible cues, a subtle whisper, a flick of a small hand. They stopped, turned, and advanced in flawless unison. "Something's not right," muttered Eleanor Peterson, her eyes narrowed as she watched from her window. "A child can't control animals like that. Not naturally. Something is wrong in that house." She had no way of knowing her suspicion would trigger a chain of events that would uncover a dark and surprising secret. One that no one in Hyannis could ever have imagined. Lily Anderson hadn't always been the silent girl who commanded dogs with a whisper. She was born to Michael and Sarah Anderson, renowned dog trainers who worked with law enforcement agencies across New England. Lily's early years were spent in a bustling home where dogs were family. Her parents noticed her special gift when she was just 3, able to calm the most difficult sheltered dogs with a gentle touch. But on a rainy October night in 2019, a pickup truck ran a red light, stealing her parents' lives in an instant. Lily was physically unharmed, but her spirit was shattered. She developed selective mutism, ceasing all verbal communication with people, retreating into a silent world where only the dogs seemed to hear her. Doctors diagnosed her with a mild form of autism, explaining her intense focus on animals and her difficulty reconnecting with humans. Under the care of her grandparents, Robert and Martha Anderson, an old Cape Cod-style house in Hyannis became Lily's new world. At 74 and 72, the elderly couple, wrestling with heart disease and arthritis, faced the challenge of raising a traumatized 6-year-old and 6 highly trained Border Collies, Max, Bella, Luke, Luna, Shadow, and Rex. Their fixed income was stretched thin by the cost of dog food and Lily's special therapy sessions, which showed little progress. Still, they refused to part with the dogs, understanding they were Lily's last link to her parents, a source of comfort that no human could provide. Behind the peeling blue door of the Anderson home, Lily discovered her father's detailed training journals hidden in the attic. They weren't standard manuals, they detailed Michael's unique, and in some circles controversial, training philosophy he called the silent language, a system based entirely on subtle body signals, eye contact, and empathetic connection. By the light of a flashlight, Lily devoured them, absorbing her father's wisdom. She developed her own version of his language, subtle hand signals, soft whistles, and gentle touches, to which the dogs responded with astonishing accuracy. One morning, when Martha's arthritis was too painful for her to manage the walks, Lily made a quiet decision. She looped the leashes onto her belt, descended the porch steps, and set out to face the small harbor town on her own. The first time Lily walked the dogs through downtown Hyannis, the sight literally stopped traffic. Cars slowed, drivers craning their necks to witness the unbelievable procession. The 6 Border Collies moved in a coordinated V formation, with Max at the point, his nearly 90-pound frame leading the pack. Lily, almost hidden in the sea of black and white fur, walked with quiet determination, her red sneakers peeking out from the forest of legs. At first, she stuck to side streets and parks, but as her confidence grew, her route expanded. By the 3rd week, walking down Main Street had become a morning ritual. A small crowd of admirers began to gather, some even setting their watches by her appearance. "Look at that," Frank Delaney, the jewelry store owner, muttered as he unlocked his shop. "Those dogs listen to her better than my teenagers listen to me." His assessment was not unique. Cell phone videos circulated among locals, showing Lily guiding the dogs through complex maneuvers. With a slight gesture, 3 would peel off to the left, 3 to the right, and merge again without a single tangled leash. At crosswalks, they would stop and form a protective semicircle around her, their attention unwavering until she gave the signal to proceed. Initially, the positive reactions outweighed the concerns. Tourists wanted pictures with the Hyannis dog whisperer, though Lily rarely acknowledged them, her focus always on her dogs. Local shopkeepers left water bowls outside. Officer James Connolly, who first watched from a distance to ensure safety, soon became her unofficial escort, marveling at her control. "I've never seen a K9 unit that disciplined in 20 years on the force." He told his colleagues, "We should be taking notes from her." The local bakery saved bone-shaped treats for the dogs, and the owner of Cape Cod Coffee made a hot chocolate for Lily, though her grandmother usually picked it up later, explaining with an apologetic smile, "She doesn't take things from strangers, but from behind the Venetian blinds of her Victorian house on Elm Street." Eleanor Peterson watched this growing celebrity with increasing alarm. A retired elementary school principal and self-appointed guardian of community standards, she believed she was uniquely qualified to identify a situation that was not right. For years, she had carried the private grief and guilt of losing her own dog, a golden retriever, who had run into the street after she'd carelessly left a gate unlatched. That single moment of negligence haunted her. Seeing Lily with her perfectly controlled pack triggered that old wound, twisting her guilt into a misguided sense of civic duty. She timed Lily's walks, noting that the child was without direct adult supervision for nearly 45 minutes each morning. "Where are the grandparents?" she demanded of her husband, who had long since learned not to engage. "Those dogs could turn on her. Or someone else. It's a simple fact." Her concern found a receptive audience among a small but vocal minority in Hyannis. Margaret Wilson, whose poodle had once been startled by Lily's collies, though there was no contact, now crossed the street whenever they approached. The PTA president questioned whether Lily was even attending school, sparking rumors of educational neglect. When Lily didn't appear at the town's Easter egg hunt, whispers of her being strange and unstable grew louder. Eleanor capitalized on this, hosting concerned citizen coffee hours on her wraparound porch, where the topic inevitably turned to the dog girl and her incapable grandparents. The community divide became clear at the May Town Council meeting. The agenda item was ostensibly about leash laws in the downtown area, but everyone knew the real subject was Lily Anderson. The historic town hall was packed. Michael Gallagher, a restaurant owner with tattoo-covered arms, spoke first. "Those dogs bring in customers. People want to sit on my patio just to watch them go by. They're better behaved than half the people in this room." Applause erupted from one side. Diane Farrar, clutching her designer handbag, countered in a trembling voice, "My grandson is terrified of dogs. Why should he have to face a pack of 6 giant animals on his way to the library? What about his rights?" Equal applause came from the other side. The debate raged for over 2 hours, revealing uncomfortable truths not just about leash laws, but about parenting, safety, and a fear of the unfamiliar. The ordinance remained unchanged, but the battle lines had been drawn. Through it all, Lily seemed oblivious. She continued her silent dialogue with the dogs, the only family she fully recognized, a small figure unaware she was becoming the center of a gathering storm. Each morning she walked like a phantom through an increasingly divided town, seen by all but connected to none, her gaze fixed only on her canine companions and the path ahead. Eleanor Peterson did not consider herself a crusader, but now, sitting at her antique writing desk, she carefully added another signature to her petition, titled, "For the Safety of Lily Anderson in the Hyannis Community." Her handwriting, perfected over decades of grading papers, was deliberate, 27 signatures. It was a respectable start, but not enough. She needed to present the authorities with overwhelming support. "Charles," she called to her husband, "after you're done with your crossword, I need you to drive me to the senior center. Betty Jackson promised to introduce me to her bridge club." Charles sighed, lowering his newspaper. "Eleanor, that Anderson girl hasn't actually caused any trouble. Don't you think this is a bit much?" "Not yet, Charles, not yet," she replied, her voice firm. "Are we supposed to wait until one of those beasts mauls a toddler? Until that poor child herself gets hurt?" Her elderly grandparents are clearly overwhelmed. It's a tragedy waiting to happen. If no one else will protect that child, I will. By the weekend, Eleanor's campaign had gained momentum. She appointed Margaret Wilson and Diane Farrar as her lieutenants, building a phone tree to alert supporters of Lily's walking schedule. They watched from a distance, documenting every moment a dog strayed more than 3 feet from Lily. The rare instance she crossed a street without looking both ways, a low growl directed at another dog. Her breakthrough came at a Rotary Club luncheon. During the public comment period, she stood and, in the authoritative voice she had once used in school assemblies, spoke of a tragedy in waiting. Her words found a powerful ally in Victoria Harrington, a town councilwoman who had narrowly lost the last mayoral election. Seeing a political opportunity, Harrington publicly praised the concerned citizens and promised a review of all relevant ordinances. Not everyone buckled. Officer Connolly refused to sign the petition, stating he had observed no violations. Dr. Stanley, The town veterinarian sent a letter to the Hyannis Oracle defending Lily's handling of the dogs. But these voices of support were drowned out as Eleanor's methodical campaign grew. The tipping point arrived on a warm Tuesday morning. A reporter for a regional newspaper, visiting his mother in Hyannis, witnessed Lily's procession and immediately sensed a viral human interest story. His article, published online that night, "The Dog Whisperer Girl, Miracle or Menace," was accompanied by a long-lens photo of Lily and a quote from concerned community leader Eleanor Peterson. The story exploded. By Wednesday, national morning shows were asking if the girl was a prodigy or a child in peril. Social media amplified the narrative, with #DogWhispererGirl trending nationally. Animal behaviorists offered conflicting opinions without ever having met Lily, and child psychologists speculated about trauma responses based on photographs alone. For the Anderson family, the sudden spotlight was unbearable. Reporters camped out at the end of their driveway. Strangers knocked on their door at all hours. The stress triggered heart palpitations in Robert. Requiring a brief hospitalization, Martha changed their phone number after receiving a flood of both threatening and supportive calls. Lily retreated even further into her silence, refusing to leave the house except for pre-dawn walks with her increasingly agitated dogs. The national attention forced local authorities to act. Caught between opposing factions, the mayor called an emergency meeting. At a press conference held on the town hall steps, he announced, "The town of Hyannis is launching a formal investigation into the situation concerning Lily Anderson. We will follow established procedures to determine what actions, if any, are appropriate." The vague statement satisfied no one. Eleanor Peterson, standing prominently behind the press corps, declared loudly, "It's about time." That evening, a black sedan with government plates pulled into the Andersons' driveway. Peeking through the lace curtains, Martha squeezed her husband's hand as she watched Melissa Rodriguez, a caseworker from the Department of Children and Families, and Officer Brett Jameson from Animal Control approach the house. "Ms. Rodriguez, Mr. Jameson," Martha said, her voice trembling slightly, "please, come in. We're here to conduct an initial assessment," Ms. Rodriguez began, her voice professionally neutral, "following a number of formal complaints regarding your granddaughter's welfare and the management of the dogs." Robert's voice shook as he gestured to the living room, where Lily sat surrounded by the 6 collies. "Lily is a special girl. Since her parents died, these dogs, they're how she stays connected to them." Officer Jameson eyed the dogs warily. "Emotional bonds aside, sir, safety protocols must be observed. 6 dogs of this size and intelligence." "We understand your concern," Martha interjected, "but these dogs saved her after the accident. When she wouldn't eat, wouldn't speak, they reached her when we couldn't." As the adults talked around her, Lily sent the dogs to designated spots in the room with subtle finger movements. A silent ballet the officials couldn't help but notice. "Lily," Ms. Rodriguez said, speaking directly to the girl, "are you happy here, living with your grandpa and grandma and your dogs?" Lily's eyes, so much like her mother's, met the caseworkers for a fleeting, heartbreaking second before darting away. There was no verbal reply. "We are scheduling a formal hearing for next Tuesday," Ms. Rodriguez announced as she stood to leave. "A judge will review the situation and determine if any temporary measures are necessary while we complete our investigation." She handed Martha a stack of papers. As the officials left, they didn't notice Eleanor Peterson's car parked discreetly down the block, nor the look of satisfaction on her face as she drove away. Finally, she murmured to herself, "That poor child will get the help she needs." Inside the Anderson house, Martha sank into a chair, tears tracing paths down her weathered cheeks. "They'll take her away from us. Or they'll take the dogs. Either way, it will destroy her." Robert knelt beside Lily. "Emma, sweet girl," he said gently, "we need your help. We need to show these people how special you and the dogs are. Together." For a moment, something flickered in Lily's eyes. Then, it was gone, and she returned to stroking Max's head, her silence deeper than any words. The battle for her future had officially begun. The investigation began on a crisp Monday morning, 7 days before the scheduled hearing. Melissa Rodriguez arrived accompanied by Dr. Alan Foster, a child psychologist specializing in trauma and autism spectrum disorders. Over the next 3 hours, the experts observed, Lily communicated with the dogs using a complex system of hand signals, subtle vocalizations, and body language. At the time of the walk, the crowd on Main Street was larger than usual. Ms. Rodriguez noted how the dogs tightened their formation whenever a stranger came too close, creating a living barrier around Lily. "It's remarkable," Dr. Foster murmured, "the level of communication, the mutual trust. To break this bond could cause significant psychological damage." As they watched, Eleanor Peterson emerged from the crowd and approached them. "Now you see it, don't you?" she said, loud enough for others to hear. "There is no way a child that small could control those animals in an emergency. It's an accident waiting to happen." On the third day of observation, the unexpected happened. Robert, weakened by stress and his heart condition, collapsed in the kitchen, before Martha could even scream. Max, who had been lying near Lily in the living room, shot to his feet and bolted into the kitchen, Lily right behind him. By the time Dr. Foster reached the doorway, Lily had already placed her grandfather in the recovery position while Max stood guard. "He always does that," Martha explained later, after paramedics had stabilized Robert. "Max knows before Robert has an episode, sometimes even before Robert feels it himself." Dr. Foster exchanged a look with Ms. Rodriguez. "A seizure alert dog," he said quietly. "Some dogs can sense the biochemical changes that precede a seizure or cardiac event. It's well documented, but rare." The discovery added a new dimension to the case. Ms. Rodriguez received permission to bring in Samantha Miller, an expert in service animal evaluation. She confirmed that Max was indeed functioning as an untrained but effective medical alert dog. The news began to shift public opinion, but Eleanor was unmoved, because one dog exhibits a useful behavior does not justify a child being surrounded by 6 potentially dangerous animals. She argued, if anything, they should keep the useful one and get rid of the rest. The investigation took another turn when a young veterinarian, Dr. Nathan Hayes, who had recently joined Dr. Stanley's practice, requested permission to observe. A graduate of Cornell with a focus on animal behavior, he took a different approach. After an hour of silent observation, he sat on the floor near Lily, but not too close. He began to subtly mimic her hand signals when she wasn't looking. On his third visit, something incredible happened. Dr. Hayes used one of her signals, a slight rotation of the wrist and a tap of the fingers. Luna, the first collie, looked at him with curiosity, approached, and sat. Lily's head snapped around, her eyes meeting an observer's directly for the first time. "I hope you don't mind," Dr. Hayes said softly, speaking to her. "I've been studying your language. It's very sophisticated." He made another signal, and Luke lay down. Lily said nothing, but she retrieved a notebook from a side table and pushed it toward him. It was filled with detailed diagrams of hand signals in an adult's handwriting, with simplified versions drawn next to them in a child's script. "Your parents' training notes," he said, understanding dawning. "You've been studying them, and adapting them for yourself." Lily gave a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. It was her first intentional communication with any of the experts. That evening, Dr. Hayes reported his findings. "She's not just mimicking her parents' techniques," he explained excitedly. "She is innovating, creating her own variations tailored to her size and each dog's personality. It's astounding, safer than most handler-dog relationships I've professionally observed. To break this bond would be emotionally and developmentally catastrophic." The night before the hearing, Dr. Hayes made an unscheduled visit. He spread articles and research papers on the kitchen table. "There are documented cases," he explained to Robert and Martha, "of children with selective mutism who first learn to communicate through an animal, and eventually transfer those skills to human relationships. I believe Lily's relationship with the dogs isn't the obstacle. It's the bridge." The next morning, the hearing room at the Barnstable County Courthouse was overflowing. Judge Sandra Ostronsky, a no-nonsense veteran of family court, silenced the murmuring gallery with a sharp look. On the petitioner's side sat Eleanor Peterson and her stern-looking lawyer from Boston. On the respondent's side were Martha and Robert, with a local lawyer who had taken their case pro bono. Lily sat between her grandparents, her gaze fixed on her lap. The dogs had been left at home. For over an hour, experts gave conflicting opinions. When Dr. Hayes was called, he passionately described Lily's communication system, her brilliant application of her parents' techniques, and Max's medical alert capabilities. When it was Eleanor's turn, she spoke with the practiced authority of a lifelong educator. "I have nothing but sympathy for the Anderson family," she began, "but sympathy must not blind us to danger. 6 powerful animals are being controlled by a traumatized, non-verbal child. This is not a stable situation." As the hearing entered its 4th hour, Judge Ostronsky called a short recess. When court resumed, she announced she would hear final arguments and then render her decision. "But before I do," the judge said, "I would like to hear from Miss Lily Anderson herself, if she wishes to speak." A stir went through the courtroom. Everyone knew the girl had not spoken in public since her parents' death. Martha whispered to Lily, who gave a small shake of her head, eyes still downcast. "Very well," the judge began, but was cut off by a commotion at the back of the courtroom. The doors burst open and Max, having escaped from the Andersons' yard, came bounding down the center aisle, a veterinarian's assistant chasing breathlessly after him. The courtroom froze for a split second. A bailiff instinctively reached for his sidearm, but Dr. Hayes shot to his feet. "He's not aggressive," he stated firmly. Nobody moved suddenly. Just as Max reached Lily, a group of reporters surged forward, cameras flashing. The sudden movement, the chaos, it was too much. Max instantly dropped into a classic Border Collie crouch. He began to circle, low to the ground, using his body and an intense, unblinking stare, the famous Border Collie eye, to gently but firmly push the encroaching people back. It wasn't an attack, it was control. It was herding. He created a perfect, safe bubble around Lily and her grandparents. While he was circling, his intelligent eyes fixed on Robert, whose face had gone pale during the proceedings. Breaking from his herding pattern, Max left Lily's side and began nudging insistently at his grandfather's knee, letting out a low whine. "Your Honor," Dr. Hayes said, stepping forward, "that herding behavior was a masterclass in non-aggressive control. But now, I believe this may be the medical alert behavior I testified about. Max may be indicating that Mr. Anderson is in cardiac distress." Judge Ostronsky regained her composure. "Bailiff, call for medical assistance. We will be in recess for 15 minutes. As paramedics attended to Robert, confirming high blood pressure and an arrhythmia, it became clear the dog had been right. Torn between staying with Lily and going with Robert, a frantic Martha was approached by the judge with an unusual decision. "Mrs. Anderson, your grandson will be taken to my chambers with Dr. Hayes. He is safe. You should go with your husband. And I suggest you take Max with you. His warnings may be of use to the medical team." In the judge's chambers, Dr. Hayes spoke gently to Lily, telling her stories about his own childhood dogs. After nearly 20 minutes, he pulled a photograph from his pocket that he'd taken during a visit. "You are an amazing trainer. Lily, your parents would be so proud." Lily's eyes flickered to the photo, showing a candid shot of her working with the dogs. Her small finger reached out and touched the image of Max standing protectively beside her. "He's special, isn't he?" Dr. Hayes continued. For the first time, Judge Ostronsky spoke. "Lily, I know this is hard. If you want to tell us something, we will listen. It doesn't have to be with words." After a long silence, Lily pointed to a photo on the judge's desk showing her with her family. "Family," the judge interpreted. Lily nodded. Dr. Hayes offered her a notepad. For several minutes, she wrote. When she passed the notepad back, it said, in neat block letters, "Please don't take my dogs. They keep the nightmares from coming back." The written dialogue continued, revealing a level of understanding far beyond her years. She understood the community's fears and her grandparents' struggles. Most of all, she made clear the dog's central role in her emotional survival. "They are how I still hear Mum and Dad in my hands," she wrote, showing she believed the training techniques were her connection to them. When court reconvened, Judge Ostronsky described her conversation with Lily and her ability to communicate through writing. Eleanor's lawyer immediately objected. "Your Honor, this court's primary duty is to determine the best interest of this child." The judge countered, "When she has found a way to communicate her wishes, I will consider all relevant information." As the lawyer argued that Lily was too traumatized to know what was best for her, something shifted. Lily, who had been sitting passively, suddenly straightened. Max stood up beside her. She slid from her chair, placed a hand on his back for support, and took a step forward. The courtroom fell silent. Lily looked up, her gaze finally settling on the judge's face. "The dogs," she began, her voice a tiny whisper, rusty from disuse. She cleared her throat, a visible effort. Max leaned into her, steadying her. "They protect me," she continued, her voice gaining a fraction more strength with each word. "When the truck hit my mum and dad, I was in the back seat. Max pulled me out before the fire started." A collective gasp went through the room. This detail, that Lily had been in the car and saved by Max, had never been mentioned in any report. Martha covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. "She never told us," she whispered. "We thought she was with the babysitter." Lily continued, her voice trembling but determined. "Max saved me then. The other dogs, they save me every day. From the dreams, from the pictures in my head. Please, please don't take them away. They're the only part of Mum and Dad I have left." She returned to her seat. The courtroom was utterly still. "I believe," Judge Ostronsky said, her own voice thick with emotion, "that we have just heard the most important testimony in this case. Mrs. Peterson, do you have a response?" Eleanor Peterson, who had been frozen during Lily's speech, slowly rose to her feet. For the first time, she looked at Lily not as a problem to be solved, but as a person. "Your Honor," she began, her voice uncharacteristically uncertain. "I acted out of a belief that this child was in danger. I still believe proper safeguards are necessary." She paused. "But, having seen and heard what I have today, I cannot in good conscience continue to advocate for these animals to be taken from her. I wish to withdraw my petition." Judge Ostronsky nodded. "Thank you, Mrs. Peterson. I am prepared to render my decision." The verdict affirmed the special bond between Lily and her dogs. She ordered a 6-month period of supervision, with regular visits from Child Services and Dr. Hayes, who was appointed to develop a therapeutic program. Crucially, she ruled that the dogs could stay with Lily, provided certain safety protocols were implemented. When a child finds a path toward healing, she concluded, however untraditional, it is our duty to nurture it. The next morning, for the first time in weeks, Lily walked her dogs without being watched. 2 weeks later, Dr. Hayes began the court-ordered therapeutic program. One warm Thursday in early summer, he suggested holding their session outdoors at the public gardens by the harbor. As they were preparing to leave, Lily suddenly tensed, her hand gripping Max's fur. Following her gaze, Dr. Hayes saw Eleanor Peterson standing on a garden path, watching them. Eleanor approached slowly. "Lily," she said softly, stopping at a respectful distance. "I need to apologize." Lily drew the dogs closer. But she didn't hide, she nodded, a tiny signal for Eleanor to continue. "I told myself I was protecting you," Eleanor began, her voice cracking, "but I was wrong to try and take your dogs. The truth is, there was a personal reason, something I've been too ashamed to admit." Her gaze flickered to Dr. Hayes, then back to the child. "I was there," she choked out, "the night your parents died. It was my car that ran the red light." The confession hung in the air. The dogs sensed Lily's shock, shifting their positions subtly. "It was raining so hard," Eleanor whispered. "I was distracted, arguing with my husband on the phone. And, I'd had 2 glasses of wine with lunch. Not enough to be legally drunk. The tests showed, but enough that I shouldn't have been driving in that weather. The police knew, but because of my standing in the community, they were lenient." Tears streamed down her face. "When I saw you walking with the dogs, it was like being haunted. The guilt, I told myself you weren't safe, that the dogs were a danger. To justify getting involved, it made me feel like I was doing something good to cancel out the bad. But when I heard you speak in court, I knew I wasn't protecting you. I was running from my own guilt." After a long silence, Lily spoke in a small, clear voice. "You hurt my mum and dad." Eleanor nodded, weeping openly. "Yes, and nothing can ever undo that. The dogs remembered your smell," Lily said, a revelation that stunned the adults. "That's why they were always nervous when we walked past your house. They remembered you from the accident." The detail struck Eleanor with devastating force. "I am so sorry, Lily." What she might have said next was cut short by a sudden noise. A cyclist swerved sharply around a corner, sending a flock of pigeons scattering into the air. The unexpected explosion of sound and movement right behind Lily made her jump in fright. Max, interpreting this as a threat, instantly moved to place himself between Lily and the perceived danger. In that chaotic moment, Eleanor instinctively stepped forward, reaching out a hand as if to steady Lily. Max, already on high alert and confronting the person whose scent he associated with his family's trauma, reacted with a protective instinct. He lunged forward with a warning bark. It wasn't an attack, it was a defensive maneuver. Startled by the dog's sudden movement, Eleanor lost her balance and fell backward onto the paved path. "Max, down," Lily commanded, and the dog immediately dropped to the ground by her side. But the damage was done. "Are you hurt, Mrs. Peterson?" Dr. Hayes asked, kneeling beside her. "My wrist," she gasped. "I think it's broken." She looked past him to where Lily, despite the chaos, had perfect control of her dogs. "He didn't actually bite me," she insisted. "He was just protecting her. I lost my balance." Despite her protests, a bystander had already called 911 to report a dog attack. Within minutes, the scene was swarming with police and paramedics. As Eleanor was loaded onto a stretcher, still insisting Max hadn't attacked her, Officer Connolly approached Lily. "I'm sorry, Lily," he said gently, "but until this is properly investigated, I have to take Max to animal control. It's standard procedure when there's an injury." Lily's face contorted in agony as she clung to Max's fur, her newfound voice gone. "No," she finally screamed, a single word that held all the anguish of a child facing a devastating loss all over again. "Please, he was just protecting me. Don't take him." From the ambulance, Eleanor tried weakly to intervene. "It wasn't the dog's fault. Please, write that in your report. I fell. The dog did what it was trained to do, protect its charge." But Protocol 1, As Max was led reluctantly to the animal control vehicle, Lily collapsed into Dr. Hayes' arms, letting out a sob that seemed to break the hearts of everyone who heard it. The next morning, Melissa Rodriguez from DCF arrived at the Anderson home. Mrs. Peterson was released from the hospital with a fractured wrist. She explained, she continues to insist the dog did not attack her, but the incident has triggered a mandatory safety review under Judge Ostronsky's order. The tense meeting was interrupted by the unexpected arrival of Michael Gallagher, the restaurant owner. He held up a small USB drive. My restaurant installed security cameras last year. They cover part of the waterfront and the public gardens. I was reviewing footage from the past few months after I heard what happened yesterday. There's something from about 8 weeks ago you need to see. In the living room, he played a video file from a Tuesday morning, 6 weeks before the hearing. The grainy footage showed the public gardens from a high angle. Lily appeared on screen with only Max, kneeling by a decorative pond that was half drained for cleaning. As she reached for a toy boat caught near the center, she slipped and fell headfirst into the murky water. The water wasn't deep, but the slick, angled surface made it impossible for the small child to get a foothold. Instantly, Max leaped into the pond without hesitation, getting his body under Lily and pushing her toward the surface. After a tense few seconds, he guided her to the edge and shoved her onto the concrete with his powerful body. The footage showed a shaken but unharmed Lily hugging the dog before they walked out of the frame. No one else had been there. The living room was silent. She never told us, Martha whispered. She came home in wet clothes but just said she slipped in a puddle. Ms. Rodriguez was typing furiously into her tablet. Mr. Gallagher, would you be willing to submit this footage for the official review? Already made a copy for you, he said. That dog is a hero. Plain and simple. The news of the video spread through Hyannis. By afternoon, a small crowd had gathered outside the animal control facility with handmade signs, "Free Max" and "Heroes don't belong in cages." The day grew more dramatic when Eleanor Peterson herself arrived at the Anderson house. She walked directly to the porch where Lily sat. "Lily," she said softly, "I saw the video of what happened at the pond. I saw how Max saved you." She took a deep breath. "I did something terrible, worse than what I told you yesterday." She looked at the adults standing in the doorway, her voice loud enough for them to hear. "I used my influence to hide the full truth of the accident. To keep my record clean. When I saw you with your dogs, I panicked that you, or they, would somehow expose what I had done. I told myself I was protecting you, but I was only protecting myself." She placed an envelope on the porch step. "I have given a full statement to the police department, correcting the record. This is a formal, notarized letter accepting full responsibility for yesterday's incident, stating clearly that Max was acting appropriately as a protective service animal." After a long moment, Lily looked at Eleanor's face and asked in a small, clear voice, "Why now?" "Because," Eleanor said, her voice breaking, "when I saw that video, when I saw that dog throw himself into danger to save you without a second's thought, I realized what a coward I've been. That dog has more courage and integrity than I have shown. I can't bring your parents back, but I can make sure you don't lose something else you love because of me." As if on cue, a police cruiser pulled into the driveway. Officer Connolly got out, leading a very eager Max on a leash. "Special delivery," the officer said, a rare smile on his weathered face. Mrs. Peterson's statement fast-tracked the review. Max is officially cleared of any wrongdoing and has been classified by court order as a service animal. What happened next would be told in Hyannis for years to come. Lily, who had been quiet and withdrawn moments before, let out a cry of pure joy and scrambled down the porch steps. As Officer Connolly unclipped the leash, the girl and her dog met in a reunion of unrestrained emotion. Eleanor Peterson watched them, tears streaming down her face. Not of guilt, but of something more complex, a mixture of regret and the first glimmer of hope for her own redemption. The summer that followed Max's brief impoundment brought transformative changes. Judge Ostronsky amended her original order, officially recognizing Max as a service animal, a legal precedent that would benefit families with similar needs across the state. This classification was extended to the entire pack, acknowledging their collective role in Lily's emotional recovery. Eleanor Peterson's public confession sent ripples through the community. She surrendered her driver's license and, most surprisingly, started a trust fund for Lily's education and future needs. It was an act of atonement that the Andersons, after much thought, accepted. "It can't change what happened," Martha said to Robert one late night, "but it can protect her future." That's what Michael and Sarah would have wanted. The most remarkable development, however, came from Dr. Hayes' continued work with Lily and the dogs. Based on her unique communication techniques, He developed a structured program combining animal-assisted therapy with traditional counseling. By September, their work attracted the interest of researchers from Tufts University's Center for Animals and Public Policy. The resulting paper, co-authored by Dr. Hayes, was published in a prestigious journal, with Lily credited as a minor age collaborator. Lily herself slowly emerged from her protective silence. Her vocabulary, advanced by her early reading, often surprised the adults around her. "The dogs don't need me to talk," she explained to Dr. Hayes during one session. "They just know. But people need words to understand feelings." When the public school year began, a modified plan was created. Lily would attend for morning classes, with Max accompanying her as her official service animal, and continue her therapy in the afternoons. The community that had once been divided by fear now rallied around her. The PTA that had questioned her schooling now held a fundraiser for the service animal program. The neighbors who had signed Eleanor's petition now volunteered to help the elderly Andersons with yard work. One crisp autumn afternoon, Lily sat on the porch steps with Dr. Hayes, the other 5 collies resting in a semicircle around them. Eleanor Peterson approached, no longer a figure of fear, but a weekly visitor who often sat and read quietly while Lily did her homework. "I was wrong about a lot of things," Eleanor said, looking not at Lily, but at the dogs. "I thought strength was about control, about making sure nothing bad ever happened." Lily looked up from her book. "The dogs are strong," she said simply, "but they don't control me. They listen." She paused, finding the right words, "and they taught me how to listen back. Not with my ears, with my heart." She reached out and laid a hand on Max's head, a small girl who had walked through an unimaginable storm and emerged into the light. Guided not by a leash, but by a bond of love and loyalty that had proven stronger than fear. Stronger than silence, and strong enough to heal a whole town.